Hi folks, as January cruises to a close, it's time to take a look ahead to what I shall be reading in February. And as usual, I'm in the hands entirely, or mostly anyway, of the Bingo Balls of Fate and the Decision Dice of Destiny. So without further ado, let's see what they have in store for me next month. First up, let's choose 2 books from my vintage shelves. And so to do that, I'm going to use this 12-sided dice, D12. Four. 8. So this is shelf 4, and immediately I spy opportunity with Deathstalker, which I'd really like to read, and then I think I'll go with Glimmering, and then Ammonite. So that's 3 already. Now is it time for me to read Stainless Steel Rat, maybe? And then I feel like I'm overdue a Heinlein, and the one that I would like to read is Orphans of the Sky, which is Generation Ships. That's 5. And then I could do a bit more Herbert. Got plenty of non-June Herberts now. Or I could go with The Gentle Giants of Ganymede, which I think is the sequel to Inherit the Stars. But I think I'm going to go for my 6th one on this shelf. I'm going to go with Hotwire by Mr. Ings. Okay. Let's see what the Dice of Destiny have in store for shelf 4. 4. So it's not Deathstalker or Glimmering or Ammonite or the Stainless Steel Rat, nor is it Hotwire at the other end of the shelf. You can take my word for that. But it is Orphans of the Sky by Heinlein. This is shelf 8, which houses my almost complete but not quite collection of the infamous Pan Lozenge books. Let's see. I don't fancy any of those this time. I've already got one Generation Ship Tale, and although I want to read non-stop, maybe that's enough. What about Starburst? That's a short story collection. No, I'm going to go with Dark Side of the Earth. Fall of Moon Dust. Quite like to read that. And then I think I want The Custodians, because it's got the Piper at the Gates of Dawn in it, which is a sort of prequel to The Road to Corley. I read all of these when I was a kid and really enjoyed them. I enjoyed An Exile Waiting the other month, so I could go with Dream Snake, so that would be 4. Let's see. Dream of Wessex, Christopher Priest is always a good read. And then how about Downward to the Earth, a Silverberg. There we go. All right, I think that's 6. Okay. Dice of Destiny for shelf 8 is a 6. So it's not Dark Side of the Earth or Fall of Moon Dust or Custodians or Dream Snake or A Dream of Wessex, but it is Downward to Earth by Mr. Silverberg. And it's time to do the Bingo Balls of Fate for my other shelves. And in an innovation this month, I have removed several shelves from the rotation, ones which are now full of books that I have read, so we don't need to worry about those. I've actually removed shelves 1 to 12 from the cage as well, on the basis that I've already done the vintage shelves, and if I decide I want to have more vintage books, then I can just roll the D12 more than twice for a given month. So again, maximising the chances for... Right, let us see what the Bingo Balls of Fate have in store. Shelf 22. Now, strictly speaking, shelf 22 is right behind these Paul Macaulay books, and it consists, you probably can't even see it, of entirely of David Eddings books. And I don't have a complete set, so there's the Belgariad and the Malorian. I'm missing one of the Belgariads, so I'm not going to start that. And I've read them all anyway, many years ago. So instead, I'm going to consider this little set of Paul Macaulay's, starting here and finishing over here, to be shelf 22. It isn't, but you know, who really cares? So let's see. I could go with either of those two. So it's White Devils and Whole Wide World. I could go with Red Dust. Eternal Light, I've tried to read, but put it down because I really want to read 400 Billion Stars first. Secret of Life, I could read. The Quiet Wars, the first of a series. And I could read Children of the River, which is book 1 of the Confluence. So how many is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, happy days. Let's see what the Dice of Destiny have to say. Dice of Destiny for shelf 22/3. Number 4. So number 4, so it's not White Devils or Whole Wide World or Red Dust or The Quiet War or Child of the River, but it is The Secret of Life. Not those two. Secret of Life. Happy days. Shelf 45. Right, so this is shelf 45, and immediately I see potential. I'm going to go with The Carpet Makers, and then Freeze Frame Revolution. It's a book I'd like to read. Not brave enough to try 1Q84 just yet. Space Opera, it's light and fluffy, I think. Weight of the World, I really want to read that. It's the second of the Amarantine trilogy, first of which I read last month. Sea of Rust. Yes, so Carpet Makers number 1, Freeze Frame Revolution number 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, let's see what the dice have in store. Dice of Destiny for shelf 45. Number 1. Right, so it is not Freeze Frame Revolution or Space Opera or The Weight of the World. That could be a problem because I really want to read it in February, so that might have to be one of my readers' picks. Okay, it's not Sea of Rust or These Burning Stars, but it is The Carpet Makers, which sounds absolutely bonkers. Shelf 40. Right, in another case of shelf anarchy, shelf 40 is right behind here. And whilst I could read the second book in the Shadows of the App series, I don't really fancy that this month, and I don't really fancy any of the other slightly scruffy old paperbacks back there either. So I'm going to, a bit like the previous shelf, I'm going to consider this a bit like shelf 22 or whatever it was back there. I'm going to just choose from this shelf and say fuck it. So we're going to have Brazil and Anvil of Stars and Saturation Point. I haven't read that yet. What about these two here? Embassy Town, and so many is that? 5, I think. So maybe I'll give Perdido Street Station another chance. I have read it, but it was a long time ago, not long after it first came out, and I wouldn't mind giving that another go. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, let's see what the dice have to say. Dice of Destiny for shelf 40/41. Number 5. Right, so it's not Brazil then, it's not Anvil of Stars, nor is it Saturation Point or Perdido Street Station or The City in the City, but it is Embassy Town, which is very exciting. I've wanted to read that for ages. Shelf 21. Right, shelf 21 is right down here at the bottom, and there is some good bookage going on down here. Number 1, I think I'm going to go with Usurpation, which I've sort of read, but it was on an e-arc and really difficult. And then I think I want to go with This Alien Shore. And then I think Ventus. And it's probably about time I tackled The Quantum Thief. So many's that? 1, 2, 3, 4. And then what about Air by Jeff Ryman? And then I think I want to have A Claire North, as it very much were. So I think I'm going to go with Notes from the Burning Age. How about that? So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. Dice of Destiny for shelf 21. Let's see. Dice of Destiny for shelf 21 is 2. It's not Usurpation, nor is it Ventus or Quantum Thief or Air or Notes from the Burning Age, but it is C.S. Friedman's acclaimed This Alien Shore. Fantastic. 18. Right, this is shelf 18. I'm not going to have any difficulty finding a books to read on this shelf, I don't think. I could go with Anti-Ice. And whilst I should read Raft first, technically, I gather they can be read separately. So Time Like Infinity would be next. That's 2. Ganymede Club, I hear, is great. And then just move this out of the way. Aztec Century I'd like to read. Somebody's that's 4. And then I really want to do a reread of the Greg Mendel trilogy. I think The Quantum Murder is first. And then I think we'll go with The Sea and Summer. Ugh. Which can't get out off the shelf. Right, so Anti-Ice is 1, Time Like Infinity is 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Dice of Destiny for shelf 18. 6. It's not Anti-Ice, sadly, or Time Like Infinity. So many books, so little time. Not the Ganymede Club, not Aztec Century, not A Quantum Murder, but it is George Turner's Sea and Summer, beg your pardon. So I need one more for this month, I think, which is shelf 37. Yeah. Shelf 37 is Charles Stross Central, some of which I've read, some of which I haven't. I haven't read Glass House, or Wireless, or Accelerando, or Saturn's Children, so that's 4. I haven't read Halting State, and I really want to reread the Merchant Princes series, so somewhere behind there is, there. So that's 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Nice. Dice of Destiny for shelf 37 is 3. So it's not Glass House, or The Family Trade, or Wireless, or Saturn's Children, or Halting State, but it is Accelerando, a modern classic. Right, in no particular order, let's take a look at the books that I've chosen. First up is Accelerando by Charles Stross, a classic, and one that I'm a little bit intimidated by. I gather that it can be quite a tough read, or on the incomprehensible side. But this basically follows, I think, an evolution of humanity towards a tech singularity. And I think it follows the journey of one family throughout that process, which I don't know how long it takes, but it kicks off in the early 2010s. So we'll see. I think it's in the form of almost like short stories, and they're set jumps ahead in time, and they get increasingly wacky and far out as they go. I don't know. I have to read it to find out. Let me know what I have in store for me if you've already read it. And then next is a book that is on the Broderick and DeFilippo top 100 list, and actually Accelerando might be as well. I don't recall. I don't think so. But anyway, this one certainly is, The Sea and Summer. And this is a climate change tale. It was written in... first published in 1987, so quite some time ago, when the notion of climate change was still a sort of theoretical possibility and not our increasingly lived reality. But this apparently in the 21st century, which I'll remind everyone we're already in, poor nations sink in accumulated debt and great nations can no longer support them. Industry embraces automation to cut costs, so unemployment rises until few can afford more than necessities. Population rises inexorably, but who dares risk the psychological backlash of childless generations? And over the planet, the greenhouse effect makes chaos of weather and food production. And as the image on the cover suggests, this is set in Melbourne, Australia. George Turner's Australian. Melbourne floods, and the divide between the haves and the have-nots is even more extreme than it normally is. So I'm looking forward to reading that. And next we've got This Alien Shore by C.S. Friedman, which I've been wanting to read for ages, and I think it's a space opera. And if I remember rightly from the blurb before, it's set in the far future. Humanity's had one crack at galactic civilization, and that's failed and contracted. And now there's a second wave of colonization on its way out. Apparently, the first wave was unsuccessful because the superluminal drive that we were using at the time causes people to go insane, permanently mutating people, I should say, in both mind and body. And one of those colonies, Guerra, has developed a new form of faster than light travel, and they've given that as a gift to the rest of humanity, but with a catch. only the Guerans, only members of the Outspace Guild can fly them. And there's a lengthy blurb I'm not going to bore you with now. But I like the sound of that. I hear really good things about it. And I think I'm right in saying there's a sequel or a book that's set in the same world. I forget what that's called. But this is the one that I've wanted to read for ages. Another book that's been on my sort of want to read soonish list for a while is China Miéville's Embassy Town, which is a first contact tale of sorts, I think. And this is something to do with being translators, the humans being the sort of translators between one set of aliens and another, and then misunderstandings happen and things go to pot from there, I gather. But China Miéville's writing is interesting, and it sounds like an interesting premise to me, so I'm looking forward to reading that. And then one that sounds even more bonkers is The Carpet Makers, which is by a German, I think he's German, possibly Austrian, author Andreas Eschbach. The basic premise here is carpet makers who, since the time of prehistory, have tied intricate knots to form carpets for the court of the emperor. And these carpets are made from the hair of wives and daughters, and they're so detailed and fragile that each carpet maker finishes only one single carpet in his entire lifetime. And the art is passed from father to son. But one day the empire of the god emperor vanishes, and strangers begin to arrive from the stars to follow the trace of the hair carpets. And what these strangers discover is beyond all belief, more than anything they could ever have imagined. So that sounds pretty weird. I'm not sure where the hair carpets fit into that, really. But again, I hear that this is a pretty unusual book, and I'm looking forward to reading it. And then we've got The Secret of Life by Paul Macaulay, who, if I remember rightly, is or was a biologist by trade, so he ought to know a thing or two about this. This is talking about microbial life on Mars that the Chinese secretly bring back to Earth, and nothing bad will come of that, obviously. So there's an genetically engineered virus using some of this microbial life, and chaos and an ecological meltdown ensues. And there's another mission to Mars to try and find a antidote or something to it, and I'm expecting that to be sort of hard science from a biology perspective. Paul Macaulay's normally pretty vigorous about that kind of stuff, or rigorous rather, and he's an author whose works I've enjoyed. I've only read a few, but the ones that I've read I have enjoyed, so I'm looking forward to that. And then from the vintage shelves we've got Orphans of the Sky, which is Robert Heinlein's one of his early books. It's a generation ship tale. It was originally published as 2 novellas contained within. It's going to be a quick read. It's just over 100 pages. And as often goes with these generation ship tales, the purpose of the generation ship has been lost. The crew have sort of evolved and developed into separate factions who misunderstand each other and don't know about each other. And nobody or barely anyone can remember what the purpose of their mission is, or even what the generation ship is. And then we've got Silverberg. It's always a pleasure to read. Downward to Earth is a recent acquisition for me, actually, just in the last month or two. So I'll be pleased to read that, which is apparently a journey of discovery on an alien world. And then my readers' picks for February are Nova by Samuel Delany, which is a space opera, standalone space opera singleton that I've been wanting to read for ages. I've only read one Samuel Delany, that was Babel 17, and I quite enjoyed that. And this, I gather, is a better book, so I'm pleased to be reading this for February. And then finally, having read The Promise of the Child, which is the first of the Amarantine trilogy, last month I've decided to pick The Weight of the World for one of my readers' picks for February. This is the second book in the trilogy, and whilst the first one was hard going, I did find it rewarding, and I admired it a lot. Like I said, I admired it. I didn't enjoy it or have much fun. I wasn't always enjoying myself when I was reading it, put it that way. It did feel a little bit like hard work at times, but I was intrigued enough to read on. So this is the second book, The Weight of the World. I should probably add to that with a couple of audiobooks. I normally get through 2 or 3, and I just decide what I fancy listening to as the mood takes me during the month. That gives me a bit of freedom. Do let me know if there's any of those that you particularly enjoyed yourself and you think I should bump up to the top of that little pile. Do let me know. I'm always interested to hear from you. But for now, as usual, thank you for watching, and until next time, goodbye for now.